Hello, Tandlers, and welcome back to TandL Talks, the podcast for, about, and featuring fabulous educators. I'm your host, Nancy, and I'm glad you're here. Today's conversation is one I've been especially excited about. We're diving into the world of visual arts with two incredible educators who remind us that art isn't just something students make, it's how they make meaning, how they find belonging, and how they learn to think. I'm joined by Kayla Hoots, music and arts teacher at Walker High School, whose journey spans choir, music theory, visual arts, and music production, and whose classroom is built on community, creativity, and courage. And alongside her is Brian Carpenter, one of the visual arts teachers at Emerald Ridge High School, specializing in ceramics and design, and someone who helps students tell powerful stories through clay, texture, and problem solving. In this episode, we talk about the teachers who shaped them, how students discover their voices through art, why perfection is overrated, I wholeheartedly agree, and how creativity connects to everything from science to history and careers and real life. So settle in, my Tandlers, whether you teach art, love art, or just believe deeply in helping kids see themselves as capable creators. This conversation is for you. Let's get started. Hello, Tandlers. I am here today talking with two fabulous visual arts teachers. Can you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Kayla Hoots. I'm the music and arts teacher at Walker High School. This is my 13th year in the school district. My first 10 of those years I spent at Ferrucci Junior High as my home base as choir director. And then I have taught pretty much every arts course in the junior high level, and then moved up to the high school for visual arts, and then started a music production class, music theory at Walker. And it's been a great time.
Great.
I'm Brian Carpenter. I am one of the two visual arts teachers at Emerald Ridge High School. My course load is more heavily ceramics, and then I have a single class of design. I have been there, I think we're going on year 7, and then I've been there the entire time that I've been within the district.
So one of the questions I like to start out with is, I want you to think back, is there a teacher that you can think of that had a big impact or influence on you? Tell me who that is. And
I have multiple teachers that I think about and have always wanted to go back and try to find their contact information to, like, during Teacher Appreciation Week kind of idea, but that's a lot of work. Yeah, I can think of one for an elementary school teacher, a high school teacher or two, as well as then college professors that have made, really heavy impact on where I am today.
And what made their influence such an impact on you?
I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to put your finger on it.
Right.
But it's a matter of kind of, I guess, what we as teachers always aspire to is we were that person for that one kid. And I think in different ways, they were that one person, as well as helped get me into the idea of art or expand upon that. Their level of passion was like infectious kind of idea, especially with some of my college professors, that it was like you could see it every single day that they felt so lucky to be able to just talk about their subject.
I love it. How about you, Kayla?
There's one very specific one in my high school director that got me into actually making the decision to teach music. I was one of those kids that, like, first grade was like, I'm going to be a teacher. And then every year was like, I'll be a first grade teacher. No, I'll be a third grade teacher. I'm in 7th grade. Now I'm going to be a 7th grade teacher, And I slowly kept going with that and could never decide on a subject. And I played piano from the age of 5. And so I had a lot of family that was like, you should just teach music. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I had never done choir. I did band and orchestra in middle school. And I always liked visual arts, but I was always in piano. So I just kind of like, that was my heart was on the keyboard. So I just kept going with that. But I stopped in high school until my junior year. And I just wanted to accompany for the choir. So I just walked in at the end of my sophomore year and said, hey, can I accompany your choirs? And he was like, you can audition for the choir. And I was like, okay, I guess. And you can audition for the jazz. They had a jazz choir. That was a pretty big deal. And that, like, 4 months into my junior year, I knew that was exactly what I wanted to do. And he provided that space for me. I was not very good at jazz at all. I'm a very like type A note reader. And he provided the opportunity for me to be myself. But I always wonder why I decided to go in that direction. And I think it was just because of the immediate connection to like a community feeling that I didn't have in any of my other courses. Like I could not only be myself, because I was still struggling with that in high school, like we all are or were, but he allowed me to find a community and build within that. And that's what I knew I wanted to do for my students. Like I didn't want to just, I wanted to be able to connect with students for multiple years in a row. And I still get to do that, which is really cool and unique to this job.
I love hearing these stories because we all have those teachers who influenced us, and then we get to be those teachers for kids now. And the power that teachers have is just incredible. And it's a lifelong influence, right? I just love that. So thank you both for sharing. So, what first sparked your love for the arts, and how does that passion show up in your classroom today?
I can just keep going. And then I started piano at the age of 5, and I just begged because we had a piano in our house and we couldn't get anyone to start a 5-year-old until my piano teacher that I had up until I was 17 took a chance on me, and I fell in love with it. And I was probably better at reading music before I was good at reading. And then my elementary teacher provided a space for me to keep going with that. But I was just always so inspired by music, but I never really thought I wanted to teach it because I didn't want it to become my job. And it turns out 10 years after teaching choir that I really didn't want it to be my job anymore because I wanted to still play and enjoy the keyboard and not have it be my 8 to 5. And so now I have this perfect little sprinkling where I still get to talk about it and teach it in a really fun and open format, but I can still enjoy it outside of school as well. I'm not just tired of, because I used to play
Right.
for 3 choirs. So I was playing all day. So the last thing I wanted to do was sit down and play. So now I get to again, while also teaching another thing, which is arts, which I've also been super into. I joined art in high school because I wanted to do ceramics, and you had to prereq. And then quickly realized I wasn't that into ceramics and that I really liked art. So that was cool. And then I kept doing stuff like that on the side outside of choir as well. So that, I don't know. I'm just a true artist.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic. And so growing up through grade school, it was always hard for me to read and make the connection and kind of participate in that sort of sense with all the other students. And so moving over to that visual art side, because it's just storytelling, right, through visual imagery. And so I was able to far more connect and make connections that way. And so me being able to make artwork and be able to tell that story in the same way that you were able to read music more, or first before we were able to read, same kind of idea of, right, just telling kind of stories through imagery. And then it kind of just grew from there, mainly on my own side of it, because I didn't really see it going anywhere besides that's just the way that I felt more comfortable communicating. And then took a class in high school, and then that it's from there.
just opened up. High school students come with diverse artistic identities and backgrounds. How do you design a learning experience that meets them where they are while also pushing them to grow?
The way that I design my projects,
There's so many directions.
I know,
I was like,
it's extremely open. And so I give rough general guidelines about here's the vibe of the project, here's like kind of the direction that we're going, a theme, if you will. And then everything else is the students have to fill in the blanks. And so the way that I constantly tell them, because I do like the step-by-step instructions, but by the end of it, you're not going to have a finished product because you need to fill in the blanks. So based just off of my instructions, it's not like an IKEA instruction. You're not going to have a finished something. And so with that, it allows them to really have to push themselves, think about what they would like to do. And then through the course of the semester, we get to know our students a lot more and be able to tell whose work is whose without even seeing a name on it.
Yeah.
Because you see their styles, you see the things that they're interested in, and you pick up information about students that way. And in that way, it's more of just a mental checklist about where each student is at. So beyond the first, second project, at least for myself, I start to learn a really good idea, an understanding about what is their artistic level, where are they at, and then from there, pushing them on an individual basis.
Yeah, I think the best part about the arts in general is that there isn't a perfect blueprint for where to go. And that is really hard for some students. A lot of students really ask for the play-by-play. Okay, but is this right? But is this good enough? Is it good enough for you? Is the real question. And that takes some work and it takes some effort and like some commitment to what we're doing. And so I would kind of echo that. Meeting the students where they are is basically step one, and then moving from there. But providing them a guideline and then letting them take it from there is probably the best way to do it. I talk a lot about technical skill versus creativity based thinking and how to connect those two, because often we'll do an introductory, we always have, when they come into class, we have an activity of some sort. And sometimes that activity is technical. And okay, this is one where I need you to follow me step by step. And some students struggle with that the same way as others in the creativity realm. And so being able to kind of build those steps, why are they important as a basis, and then letting them take that knowledge and build it into their own practice is really cool to see. And I just tell my students at the end of the day, I want you to learn how to build your toolbox of thinking, of learning, of looking at something and being creative about how you use it and how you grow out of that. I guess that's about it.
Which is really, when you think about, that's kind of what employers are looking for oftentimes, right? They want somebody who can follow the parameters and then use their creativity to solve or to make things better.
Right.
And that's what you are building your classrooms through art instruction.
It's interesting having transferred from music courses into visual arts because I can give them the reins so much more. And I wish that I could provide music opportunities that did the same thing, because oftentimes when I was teaching choir or elementary music, there would be like a focused skill, but it'd be more about, and there is like a community, like such a huge community aspect of it, but it's more about creating something as a whole and feeling that like oneness as a group, where like visual arts is more individually based. And I want both out of everything.
So you're kind of in the perfect job for that, right?
Yeah. Carved a nice little spot for myself.
Smart. Can you think of a moment when a student just surprised you with their creativity or their perspective?
I mean, I'll talk about, I have the one like the one kid that makes you question everything. I have that kid. He was probably, I think he started in 7th grade, the second year I was teaching, maybe. And he was the most creative musician I have ever seen. And he was just full of it and didn't know, two, struggled to behave and kind of handle. I mean, he was a 7th grade boy. So
Yeah.
the energy level was high. And he didn't find safety in very many places at the school because of that. And he really struggled. And I couldn't help him find a place within music to find success that we offered. And I think he just sent me his album that he self-created like a year ago. And it was great. It was so well done. And it was so amazing to see him still push through that when I know the roadblocks he was up against. And I think I am always trying to teach to that kid that is that like fringe outside of the rest of where kids fit. And he just inspired me to really question what I believed and what I found really important as an educator. And yeah, it led me to where I am now. So
Nice.
thank you to him. I probably shouldn't say his name.
I kind of feel like it happens all the time. Like, yes, there are some that are like complete wows. Like, I had no idea that you were capable of this because it doesn't seem like you're like the arts kind of kid. And then they bust something out. You're like, wow, I mean, okay. I'm a little bit jealous of the way that
Yeah.
it looks. Like, that turns
Yeah.
out fantastic. Yeah, so it's been a handful of kids, like, throughout the years that I've been doing this. But at the same time, each one of them has the ability to surprise you in some sort of way, maybe for good or bad. But
Yeah.
generally, it's a positive, like, wild moment of growth sometimes, like a growth spurt that gets you after, like my advanced kids are on the wheels right now, the Potter's wheels. And I think today some kid threw a vase. It looks decent, but it's like the third thing they've done on it after only being on the wheel for 3 times.
Wow.
And that's pretty impressive to get something that looks pleasing, that they're happy with it. And that's what they were trying to go for, opposed to, well, it kind of looks okay, kind of idea. And so there's little moments like that throughout it. And it's really nice to kind of see that.
And you have to look for them when you're having those like tough times.
Right.
Because they are always there.
There are. And depending on how small or big that wow moment is of that growth moment that they've had, yeah, they're always there. It's just a matter of you have to look for it, especially if they're those smaller ones.
Do you ever have students who come up with a piece of art or technique or something that you don't know how to do? Or that you ask them, hey, how did you make that cool thing?
Often. Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning as an artist, which is one of my favorite things, is that I get to learn next to the kids. I think it's made me a lot better of a teacher, but I went to school for music. So
Right.
like my technical basic skills are still growing a lot. And so I get that quite often. But the kids that are not afraid to just make with whatever's in front of them, like I'm always so jealous of them because I'm such a contemplative artist.
I am too. I'm very scripted. It's very like I have a method. It's a lot of research, sketching, then coming up with the idea. But some kids can just jump into it. And it's not to say that they aren't doing that same kind of idea, but they just follow their own path to be able to get to that idea. And so the big one that I'm thinking about right now is textures within clay. Of kids are just trying different random things, using tools in a weird way, perhaps. And then you just get a texture and you're like, How did you even do that? That's impressive.
Right.
That texture looks fantastic, especially for what they're going for,
Right.
to kind of replicate that texture to make their artwork, their sculpture, whatever it is we're making, far more accurate and far more lifelike, and add in those other elements to it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just something as simple as, how did you do that texture in the clay? Like, that's fantastic. That's amazing.
We're doing this thing called Abstract Advent. So it's like it's an advent calendar, but every day you're given a prompt, but it's just an abstract shape and you have to use it in whatever way your brain thinks of. And day one, I was a little nervous about it because it's very open and that can be hard for some kids. And there's such cool stuff that I would have never even thought about. I mean, there's always the few kids that are like, it looked like a wheel, but like this, I have one student that has made it into a clothing item every day and it's so good. So they're always impressing.
Yes. You talked about this earlier, but that connection between visual art and storytelling. What kind of stories do kids tell you through their art?
Endless. There's an entire library, because especially with the encouragement that they get to make it their own art, that's the only place that they have to pull from, is what they're interested in. And so whether it's just the sport that they play at school, whether it's the TV show that they like, even just something as simple as that tells an aspect of their story themselves. And so it's really cool to see almost like these stepping stones or a little droplet of their story through each little piece of art that they create. And then as we get to know the kids a lot more and see more of their work, we can easily see the through line with it.
I'm trying to think of specifically, but I think the hard thing is it all blurs together because we get to see them for a good amount of time if we're able to. I mean, Walker's kind of small, so I get to know kids on a level that not very many teachers do, and their artwork just adds to that story. And I'm trying to think of a specific one, but they're just all so unique. It's tricky.
How do you both create a classroom environment where kids feel safe to take risks, even if they don't see themselves as artists?
That's probably, for me, one of the biggest struggles that kids come into my room with. I had a student who just started this second quarter, so it would have been the beginning of November. And he was really nervous. I got an email from the counselor that said he was really worried about creating artwork and having it be critiqued. And we've been jumping a little bit into critique because I want them to know that it's not as scary as it seems. And the first time we did a critique exercise, everyone was we did a critique exercise with artwork that was none of the kid. It was I just pulled from my stacks of last few years. And they were so complimentary of each other. And even if it was a critique, it was thought out and it was kind and meaningful. And so he was really nervous about that. And he came out with one of the best pieces. And he's only been here for a month and a half. And he's at Walker for whatever reason. And he already has a little bit of a voice. But I think one of the biggest parts for me is making sure that kids know that they're starting over fresh when they walk in my room, and any baggage that they have from previous art experience they need to try really hard to let go of it, because they all come in with a certain thought. And even adults, this is a cultural topic that I could jump into for hours on, that most people don't believe they're an artist, where we are just artistic. We are human beings are creative inherently. And so you just have to find out which avenue of creativity you really jive with. But I make sure that anything they create, anything they put on the page is worthwhile, whether they're proud of it or not. And we just keep pushing through that. It's sometimes hard, and I don't know how you feel, Brian, but it's sometimes hard to have that conversation and then compare it to like craftsmanship, because some kids just want, and not by some, I think a lot of times they feel so overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have that they're like, well, I'm just going to get it done. where I'm like, take the extra time and I will not penalize you for that. But what does craftsmanship mean to you? What can you add to this? Don't just put it down on the page. If you actually don't care about it, what you're putting on the page, then wait until you are ready to make something meaningful on the page. So
Absolutely. I very much tell them that I would rather you turn something in late and having had done it the right way, learn from the process, opposed to just turning something in so that you can get it done by that date and then we learn nothing. Because then at that point, it's just busy work that they kind of completed.
yeah, no busy.
No.
Ugh.
But I'm the same kind of way of thinking very much. It's encoded into our DNA that we are creative creatures. It's in our DNA that we want to make things look pretty and to tell our stories. That's just what art is, right? And so making sure that that's known, I work really hard to get rid of the idea that perfect is a thing. Perfect doesn't exist. It's a construct within our mind and we all have a different definition of it, so therefore it doesn't exist. And so I think that's the biggest one to get rid of, or the biggest hurdle I feel with kids is that they're sometimes scared to take those chances to possibly make mistakes because it's not going to be perfect. And this is coming from a lifelong perfectionist that I know the struggle. I totally understand it. It's taken years to be okay with something not turning out exactly how we envisioned it in our mind.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we have a successful project, do we not? Well, yeah. Exactly. Right? And what did we learn along the way, right? We worked all the way through that process and we turned out something successful. Was it exactly how it was in our mind? Does it look exactly like our sketch? No. But that's just the ebb and flow of the process that we have to trust in. And that by the end of it, as long as you've put your effort into it, that energy that it requires, the time it takes, that is successful.
Right.
That is a moment of success for those students. And even just having that little conversation with them, they start to pause and kind of think about it. That, well, it's not my favorite. It doesn't look that great. I think it looks fantastic, especially right for our first project, our second project. We're still learning. We're still learning the entire time. And so we have something that you have a finished product.
Yeah.
It's not broken. It didn't get ruined. It was the general idea you wanted to do. And so in that sense, it's just getting rid of that idea of perfectionism, having it be okay to make mistakes, because that's how we learn. Once again, coming back to just that, our brain and how it works with us is it's just all trial and error. As soon as we find something that works, we lock it in and we continue forward. Well, that didn't work. Okay, why? Okay, that didn't work. Why?
Problem solved.
Exactly. That's just the simplicity of problem solving, is tweaking what we're doing until it works. We lock that in and continue moving forward. And so kind of just making sure that it's that mentality and getting rid of, because I hear it from adults too, of their staff. Oh, I'm not an artist.
I know.
That would turn out like a hot mess if I did it. Well, with that attitude, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the same kind of idea that it's no different from it just needing to be the idea of a growth mindset.
When I was like, I'm a choir director, immediately, anyone, stranger, friend, oh, I'm a terrible singer. No, you're not. You just haven't learned.
Right. You just haven't learned how to do it. You haven't had somebody help you learn how to do it.
Right.
We are human. It takes practice. And I think that's what a lot of students, as well as just people in general, kind of forget, because we exchange the word of experience with talent within the art world. And so it's those kids that you see drawing constantly, and then they're in an art class and they can produce something well. They've been drawing since they were in elementary school.
How come so-and-so can do it? So-and-so draws.
Draws
24/7.
Right. And so I think they forget a lot about that, and they just think that, oh, it's you have it or you don't. And then if you do have it, you can refine it. possibly to a degree, right? There's an artist mind and the way that one thinks and goes about things. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of growth mindset. You just have to put your mind to it, and you could.
Right.
Yeah.
And practice and trial and error, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And paying attention to those mistakes we made, because otherwise, if we don't and we don't learn from that mistake, we're just bound to make it again.
Yeah. I think like culturally, like the importance of practice as of late has been like, how many of us really ground ourselves in a daily practice? And if we do, it's so rewarding. And just trying to remember that on the daily.
So, in what ways do you connect visual arts to other content areas or career pathways or real world applications?
Oh, lots of ways.
Lots of ways.
I mean, Walker does some project-based learning. We've gotten into it. I did a big mural project a couple
Yes, you
years ago that was super fun. I'm sorry, I'm mulling around the idea of another big painting project for the spring. But the coolest part about it was what was the question? The question was, how does public art inspire and build community? That was the answer. That was the question that they had to answer through the project. And before we started on the actual mural process, like building through they had to propose, they had to propose their own designs, and we had to vote on them and choose them, and they had to investigate, and we had guest artists come in and a whole thing. And we spent, 6 or 7 weeks building up, and then we finally got the design done. And it wasn't until they all got outside and started painting and had like a personal connection to this creation that they started to get the answer, that they started to understand, oh, this is the community part. And I am part of this thing, this whole. And that was super cool. And we investigated that as in different avenues of subjects and such. But I think besides that, I talk about creative work within historical contexts. Within the project I'm thinking about for the spring would be actually plotting data points, because I got this kid, we were joking about their Spotify Wrapped age, because I had a 10th grader who was 61, and then I had a senior who logged in and they were 85. And I was like, well, now I need to find the oldest kid by their Spotify Wrapped age. And then I was like, what if we started like making this a plotted data point, and then we use like a algebra algorithm. Oh, that's so gross. But no, I like math, but I really do. And then put it out and made it into basically like a grid work of artwork that would just be like interviewing the other kids and the little bits that make up Walker. And so, we're always integrating it in one way or another. I don't know. I'm always stealing internet videos to show them and to inspire them that they can be creative within any avenue or profession that they decide to go into. So I would say I just on the regular, and I bring it into daily discussions too with my kids.
It's a daily thing. The way that I think about it is that, sure, I mainly teach ceramics. We teach visual art. How many of the students are going to leave high school and go into visual art? Not many.
Right.
And I don't find offense to that. Like, that's just how it is. And so us teaching the visual art, or at least the way that I think about it for myself, the way that when I'm teaching visual art, it is just the vehicle for the actual lessons that we're actually learning, right? It's that problem solving. It's that creativity and thinking about like what exactly you would want to do, how you're going to figure out doing that, research, right? Finding reference photos, coming up with a plan. And so planning it all out. And then not to mention with the messy world of ceramics, we're cleaning every single day. And so I know parents can enjoy that a little bit, that we maybe learned how to clean and use the sponge and clean up our mess. Because with them being young adults, holding them to account for that.
Right.
Of like, you guys made the mess, you're going to clean it up. And if we want to be treated like young adults, we have to first act like young adults. And we as adults take responsibility for the mistakes or messes that we've made. And so, and then beyond that, I'm a nerd. I don't care. I love science. And so any moment that I can at least make a connection with what we're talking about, with what we're doing, I will. I'll try to keep it, I'll rein myself in a little bit sometimes, depending on the topic.
You have to watch out if I'm like subbing world history. I'm like, well, do you guys know? I go on side tangents and
Yeah.
like, our teachers don't do that. But I think there's reasons why. But I'm
Right.
always like, well, I'm the fun teacher.
In that space.
In that space.
We're going to go off a little off topic.
Tangent all day, baby.
But yeah, bringing in those little elements of, I mean, art is just science. I just think about it in the sense of artists and scientists are the exact same thing. Artists just got distracted with how pretty the data is, while the scientists are more interested in what the data means, kind of idea. But it's the same, it's two sides of the same coin.
They're still investigating.
Right. We're investigating, we're asking questions, we're trying out different techniques. And then especially within the world of ceramics, it's all chemistry.
Right.
It's 100% chemistry. You want your glazes to turn out this color. Okay, well, the chemical reaction that takes place of the chemicals that are in that glaze are how we get it to look that way when it comes out of the kiln. Because up at those temperatures, it creates that chemical reaction, which is our end product of the color we want. Because a lot of things throw the kids off of a lot of glazes don't look the way that they're supposed to in their raw form.
Oh, yeah.
And so it throws the kids off of, are you sure that this was just, yep, go look at the test tile. That's why we have them.
Right.
Right. Or I even play a little game with the kids of, I have something that I did in college, and it is the same glaze, but one is done in reduction and the other is done in oxidization. Two different firings, one that has oxygen present and the other does not. And so with copper, when the oxygen is present and that gets incorporated into the chemical makeup of what the glaze is, it turns out green. But the same exact glaze, no oxygen, it turns out red.
You could literally make them do a lab on it.
Right. And so I've just used that as a fun, we're going to do this thought experiment of how is this possible? It's the exact same glaze. Why are they two different colors?
Right.
But then, yeah, so it's all just, I love science.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on.
And then art history, all of it, because it's all connected and it helps us understand what we're actually talking about more. Just having that bit of context about, well, when and why did we start painting on canvas kind of idea, and why were we painting on wood before that? Well, wood is far more readily available, but then we started sailing around the world and canvas became far more available, and
Yeah.
oh no, it's the Renaissance, and
Oh no.
Florence is right, a huge
Right.
production hub of sales.
Right.
Right. I was just talking about that. My student was saying they want to go to Spain, and I said at the Royal Palace in Madrid, there was, I can't remember which room it was, but it was gigantic, and it's embroidered in gold thread on green silk, the entire walls.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it just is and we know why, historically, how it got there and how much time it took and all the people it took to build that out. It's absolutely mind-boggling. So we both go on tangents.
Yeah.
Quite
Love it.
often, it
You
seems.
find the right topic and we're in the right mood, and oops, there's the bell.
So is there something that you wish more people understood about the impact of arts education on kids' well-being, their belonging, academics? What do you wish people understood?
That we wouldn't understand the world that we live in if it weren't for art.
Yeah.
Everything in this room, everything in wherever we're listening, it was created to some degree by an artist. As not as exciting as this table may be, it's just a table. It was designed by somebody, and it had to go through a process of getting approved. That's what it's going to look like. so on and so forth, the different way that the boards are cut so that we have a nice star pattern in the center of the table to give it some sort of visual interest. And that's just the legs and all of it, how it's put together, the color of the walls in the building you work in, or the way that traffic lights look, all of it. We would not even understand the world that we live in if it weren't for art, to one degree or another.
I think there's such a big idea right now that our thinking can be replicated, right? But the thinking that's being replicated through AI is being replicated on data that it's pulling from our own thinking, right? And our thinking is always evolving, and it always will be evolving. I know there's a lot going on right now where there's only so much you can pull because a lot of the data that we truly have is still written and not digitized. And is it worth protecting to keep from being digitized? And I just think the biggest part about arts education that we wouldn't realize until it was gone is what comes from it.
Right.
And it's been so systematically minimized over the last 20 odd years that I get worried that we're going to get to the point where we realize suddenly that we don't have people that have gone through this creative. I mean, look, why we're only here because of the people that inspired us to be here, you know? And that can go for everything. But at the same time, like, we are teaching kids how to think through things more than we are teaching them how to physically make things. I mean, there's both sides to it, but the thinking process is so important.
It's such a larger portion of that equation of we have to have the technique so that we can do this task. But then beyond that, it's all you.
Like, I think my number one goal, and especially I tell kids post-internet, we still kept the internet. I mean, you and I are of the age where we knew school before the internet and we knew school after the internet. And I think the hardest part is I tell students after we transitioned out of the internet or into the internet, if you will, we kept teaching in the same way as though teachers are the keepers of knowledge. And we no longer were the keepers of knowledge. We're the guidance of knowledge. We guide the knowledge and the thinking. And so I tell my students, what I really care about is that you learn how to learn. And you learn how to learn successfully so that you can take those tools and apply them to whatever you see fit to be a creative thinker. And we know from history that in times of trouble, the artists are the ones that are often quieted because they're the ones that are thinking outside of the box. Without that, we can't develop as a society. And so, I don't know, that's the goal.
Well, thank you both so much for being here in the TandL Clubhouse. I just so appreciate your perspective, and it was great to have you. So thank you both for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It was wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.